Is our sound good? Let me know on IG. Is the sound good? Can y'all hear me all right? Everybody let me know that y'all can hear me okay with my sound. I'm posting my, let me make sure my comment is pinned here. Pinned comments are working. All right, so that's going good. All right, that's one positive we got going so far. Hope everybody's having a good, what day is it? Saturday. Good end of your October. Hope everybody has started writing down your goals for the month of November. If you're not the type of person who writes down your goals for the month that is coming up, change yourself. All right, be the person in the mirror, the man or the woman in the mirror, and make that change, like Michael Jackson said, and start writing down your goals for the month before the month actually gets here. Hope everybody's had a great week. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Dre Baldwin. I'm a former 9-year pro athlete, author of 33 books. You'll see a couple of them behind me. The Third Day, this one. Some of y'all might see my ads for this one. The Mirror of Motivation. Some of y'all see my ads for that one. If you haven't yet gotten your copies of these books, I'll give you a free copy of the book. Just go to the links that you see at thirddaybook.com, mirrormotivation.com, and give you the book free. Just cover the shipping. If you're not getting my daily motivation text, make sure you do that. But the biggest thing I'm going to talk to you about, in addition to the topic that I'm about to cover, is my next live event. It's called Work on Your Game Live. It will be taking place here in beautiful sunny Miami. I'm not next to a window right now, so you can't see the sun. But trust me, let me tell you what the weather is in Miami right now. This is straight from the weather app. As you can see, it is 83 degrees, partly cloudy, and look at the next 10 days. All right, you see that? That's the next 10 days in Miami. 85, 85, 85, 85, 84, 83, 82, 83, 83. You see it right there. All right, so this is straight from what app is this? I mean, what company is providing this information? I think this is a Weather Channel. Is this the Weather Channel? I think this is the Weather Channel providing this information. If you want an excuse to come to Miami in the middle of the winter, because my event is February 3rd and 4th, that's a Friday and a Saturday, is a 2-day event with me. I'm going to be teaching all this material for 2 days, going over mindset. We're going to start with mindset, then we get into the strategy, the accountability, and the execution over the course of 2 days in beautiful Miami. We're going to give you breakfast in the morning. We're going to give you lunch in the afternoon. We're going to provide the snacks and all that stuff, because I like to snack. I'm the type of person, when I'm at an event, I like to snack. I like to eat little candies and have something to drink and stuff like that. We're going to provide all that. We got a VIP dinner Friday night and Saturday night at two of my favorite establishments down here in South Florida. Listen, if you want a reason to invest in yourself, you want a reason to come to Miami, you need to figure out just what kind of investment you're going to make in yourself. In 2023, you want to make the investment now so you're already setting yourself up for success next year. Get your ticket to Work on Your Game Live. We got early bird pricing between now and the end of the month. Now, the end of the month sounds like a long time, but today is October 29th. So the end of the month is all day today, the next day, and the day after that. So if you have not yet made that decision, I'm going to help you make that decision, give you a little bit of urgency. Get your early bird tickets. You can still get tickets after that, but the price is going to go up. So you might as well save yourself some money. Either way, you can write this off on your taxes. Go to workonyourgame.live. Workonyourgame.live. Get tickets to my event. Anyway, let's get into the topic, what I actually want to talk about here. Lionel, what's going on? I appreciate you. Remember that song from back in the day. Y'all let me know where y'all checking in from. Tell me where y'all are location-wise. I don't know if we got anybody who's already in South Florida. If you actually live in South Florida to where you could come to my event and you don't even have to get on a plane, then it should be an even easier decision for you, because you don't even have to, won't even be that hard for you. If I can go to an event that's in South Florida, that's easy for me. So I don't have to think that hard about, I don't have to think about travel. Might not even need a hotel depending on how far I got to drive. But anyway, what I'm going to talk about here today is how school sets you up for failure. Or if you already finished school, those of you who are already still in school, school is setting you up for failure. And those of you who already finished school, high school, college, grad school, I don't care, medical school, whatever school you went to, school sets you up for failure. And I'm talking about the overall structure of school. I'm not talking about any specific institution. And I'm live on my Facebook group as well. It's called Six Figures and Growing. Those of you who are users of Facebook. This is not an indictment, what I'm about to say. I'm going to indict some institutions, but not everybody. I'm not indicting school teachers. So if you're a school teacher, this is not a diss of you. I got some good friends and even family members who are school teachers. So this is not dissing anybody who works at a school, and is actually not really dissing the American educational system. I've already done that in other episodes of my Work on Your Game masterclass slash podcast. If y'all don't know about that, look it up. And on Spotify or Apple, it comes out every single day. It's free of charge. The show's been listened to over 5 million times. So if you haven't listened to it, you might be one of the minority, at least of podcast listeners. You haven't listened to my show. It's not an indictment of those. What I'm going to talk about is the schooling that I and people in my generation received, and I think many of you are still receiving, because the way that school is structured, even though like the teachers have changed, maybe the topics have changed a little bit, maybe the textbooks have changed, and just a little bit of the energy of the wave of the energy of how school goes is different now than it was, let's just say 15 or 20 years ago. But overall, the structure, the framework, the skeleton of the educational system has not changed that much, at least in the United States of America. So that's really what I'm going to be talking about, comparing what we were taught in school to what actually happened once we got out into real life. That's what I want to talk about. So if you are a teacher or a professor who is listening to me right now, feel free to challenge me on any of my points. Feel free to call me out if I get anything factually incorrect, but I'm not really talking about facts here today. I'm talking about the frameworks of how school works, the perspective of how it works. But if you disagree with my perspective, you have a right to do that as well. So let me know, anybody who disagrees with anything that I say here. So this is not really made to bash anybody who's a teacher, because again, I know some people who are actually good teachers. I have a business degree, and I also I got Work on Your Game University. So I'm still a professor to this very day, just not at a university, or at least not the kind of university most of you think of. And school can be different in many ways, again, now than when I graduated. I graduated from college in 2004, and I have not even considered going to any other type of schooling, that kind of school, since then, and I never will. Unless only way I'll be at a school, only way you'll see me on a college campus is if somebody is paying me to be there. Or actually, there's another example. If my child, or if I have multiple children, my children, if they go to school, then you might see me walking around the school. But other than that, you're not going to see me walking around the school unless somebody's paying me money to actually be there. So all that said, let's get into the actual points here today of how school actually set you up for failure. First of all, the general way the school worked, and any of you who is under the age of, if you're under the age of 35, then maybe the school has changed in some way. So if I got this wrong, let me know. General way school worked for people in my generation is that the info was presented to us by the teacher or the book or the what do they call it, the lesson in the classroom. You go to class and the teacher teaches whatever they teach, right? They teach you the information. Then your job is to retain the information that you were taught, which means you either got to take notes, you got to do the homework, you got to read the textbook, you got to, maybe nowadays they send you to a website or a video that you can watch to get the lesson, whatever it is. They give you the information, you retain the information, and then at some point you're given some type of examination. And what does the exam prove? The exam doesn't prove that you actually know anything. What the exam proves is your ability to retain and regurgitate the information that you were taught. Now, any of you who's anybody here under the age of 35, and I don't care what level of school you completed, you could just have completed high school. You don't even have to be a college graduate. Is it any different? Because again, I'm older than some of y'all, so maybe school changed since I got out of school. It hasn't changed. This is a 3-step process. Let me say it again. You go to class and they teach you information. Your job is to retain the information, and then at some point you get a test or a quiz or an exam or midterms or finals. And on that test, your job is to prove that you retained the information that was given to you. That's how my schooling was. When I was in school, that's how it was. I'm asking if any of you is under the age of 35, was it different than what I just said? Can anybody confirm or deny that it was different? It was the same. If it was different, tell me how. Somebody let me know if any of you can recall. Or maybe none of you is under the age of 35, so then nobody can answer the question. So I'm going to just leave that out there, and I'm going to continue. If things are pretty much the same and you were able to retain information, here's what happened. If you were good at retaining and regurgitating, because you got to do both. Don't just retain it, but you got to regurgitate it. So that meant you go home, you study, you had to spend a certain amount of time studying. My mom's a teacher, so when I would come home from school, and I got a sister, she's a year older than me, so we come home from school and we had to spend a certain amount of time like doing homework. Even if we didn't have homework, you get home and your parents like, what you got for homework? You ain't had no homework. Or you still got to study. So you had to spend a certain amount of time studying, which was what? Just proving that you could memorize a certain amount of information so that when there was a test, you could pass the test. You get an A on the test, or at least a passing grade on the test. What happens when you get a passing grade on the test? You pass that class and you get to move up to the next class or the next level or the next grade. So if you're good at doing that, you're good at following that process, like Nick just said there, what you prove, not that you learned anything. What you prove is that you are good at following the process as it is. And the better you are at it, the higher your grades. People who are really, really good at this, they got A's and A minuses, and they made in elementary and high school, they called the honor roll, and in college, they called the dean's list, which is basically the list of the people who were the best at passing the examinations. And the better you did at that, the higher grades you got, and then maybe you got a scholarship to college, you got some kind of recognition, and those are usually the people who got those A's in school. Those are usually the people who get really good, or at least some type of prestigious positions working at jobs. So then they go on to work at some job that looks at your grades in school, and they hire people based on how well you did in school. And that is not necessarily a negative thing, but let me lay out the rest of my argument here. So if you were good at that, you were labeled as a good student who succeeded, or you were labeled as smart. Some people even call you smart, or you felt like you were smart, or what some people would say, and sometimes people would say this in kind of derisively, you were book smart, meaning you were good at memorizing what's in the book. You were book smart. It didn't mean you had any other kind of intelligence. And I remember when I was in school, there were some times when I would do good in school and I would get those good grades. And there were times where I would be mediocre. I was never like bad, but I would be mediocre simply because I wasn't giving an effort. Now, my sister, on the other hand, she was a really good student. She was really good at retaining the information and regurgitating the information. Now, whether she was actually smart or not is anybody's, I think she's pretty smart, but because of what she went on and became a actual teacher in school. So she actually followed the whole process. So she was good at following the process for what she ended up doing professionally. Now, if you were to take her out of that space, would she still be that great? We don't know. It actually doesn't even matter. If she stays in that job, then I guess it doesn't matter in the big picture. The thing for me is, because of the line of work that I went into, it mattered a lot, because the work that I do now, for example, as an entrepreneur, doesn't matter whether I can memorize and regurgitate information, because my ability to do that has no effect on my ability to generate revenue, right? But if I worked at a job where it was all about just doing more of what I did in school, then my ability to do that would basically be 100% of whether I can make money or not. So it really depends on what direction you choose to go in life. So this is not necessarily about it being bad versus good, or a positive versus negative. I'm just pointing these things out because a lot of you probably want to do something like, as I hear from people all the time, especially if you're watching this video, people say, well, Dre, I don't want to do the traditional thing as a job. I want to kind of do my own thing. I hear people say that to me all the time. I want to run my own business. I want to, have my own company. If you want to do something like that, then your ability to consume, retain, and regurgitate information has zero effect on your ability to run that business successfully. Now, on the other hand, if you want to go work at a job and get into a system where basically you just have to do more of what you did in school, consume, retain, regurgitate information, then you should get really good at that, because at certain jobs, if you're good at that, you'll make money for the rest of your life. You'll have a job for the next 40 years, at least after you graduate. Then you can retire. They'll give you a pension. It'll be maybe some percentage of what you made when you were a teacher, and then you can die, and I guess you'll be happy if that's what you want. I'm just laying out the options here. I'm not saying one is right or wrong. Now, let me go to the other side of this. If you were really good at this, this is what you got, right? You got good grades, and you got honor roll, dean's list, scholarship. Maybe it helped you get a job when you got out of school. What happened though, on the other hand, any of y'all can answer this question. Doesn't matter what age you are. What if you were bad at this process? So this is the process of school. You consume information. You had to study it so that you can memorize and retain it, and then you had to regurgitate it. What did we say about the kids who were not good at that process? What did we say about them? What kind of labels did they get put on them? And maybe some of you got these labels put on you. I said I was mediocre to good as a student. I was good sometimes when I felt like being good, and I was mediocre when I didn't feel like trying. So I was never labeled. I never got one of the labels of the students who didn't do good, but I knew a lot of students who did get these labels. What did they label you when you were not good at this process? Somebody let me know. You got, not only did you get labels, but you also had things happen to you. You had things done to you. And depending on, who the adults were in your life, they might have put you on a path that you didn't even deserve to be on, or not deserve, but you shouldn't have been on. simply because you didn't have anybody advocating for you the way that the school system was set up. So I know there's a little bit of lag time between what I say and when y'all get it, but excuse me. Excuse me. Again, I'm still getting over the sore throat. So what would happen here? I'll answer my own question. When you were not good at the process of consume, retain, regurgitate information, you would get labeled. Like, Nick, you got it right there. So you would get labeled as a troubled student, maybe a catalyst, maybe people, if you were a type who just couldn't sit down in a room and just listen to somebody talk for 8 hours straight. You really think about that? That's what school is. You sit there for 8 hours straight and just listen to somebody give you information you're supposed to memorize, and then you got to spit it back to them 3 months later to pass the test. That's how school is set up. If you were not good at that, and you, let's say you acted out in class, they might call you the class clown. You might be labeled as like a troubled kid, or you're just one of the bad students because you have behavioral issues, because it's hard for you to just sit there and listen to them talk. They might put you on some kind of medication because they like, oh, you got ADHD because you can't sit there and listen like all the rest of the kids. Or what some of us would say about our fellow students, and I'll even admit that I was guilty of this at times. I might not have said it, but I would definitely thought it, is that you look at some of these kids, you would think they were dumb. Look at that. We got one of these dumb kids in the class because they get F's and D's on their homework or on the quizzes or on the tests. We thought they were dumb simply because they weren't able to execute the process as well as other people were able to execute the process. And since this was set as the standard was what? Execute this process. So if you are not living up to this standard of executing the process, then that means there's something wrong with you, and they would deal with you accordingly. Meaning you might end up in a counselor's office. You might end up getting punished for some reason. You might get left behind. Like, let's say all the kids moved up to third grade. You still got to go back to second grade. And now people thought you were stupid. And now you have this social stigma on you. And that can stick with you for your whole life. If that happens to you in elementary school, you're 6 years old, 7 years old, 8 years old. And now all kids your age think you're dumb because you got left behind. You had to take a class again or take a grade again. Or they're calling your mom or your dad up to the school because you're not getting good grades. All of that stuff can stick with you. You could be 30 years old still dealing with that, right? You could be going through some type of, I guess we call it psychological trauma. People like to talk about trauma these days. It could come from this because you simply weren't following the process the same way, and you got looked at as one of the dumb kids. So you were riding on a short bus. You had to be in a special education class. And here's the thing. There might not have even been anything wrong with you. There was nothing wrong with you, quote unquote. It was just that you didn't learn the same way that other people learned. Nowadays, the good thing is we've learned that sometimes the student who is kind of the outlier, who can't sit in class and listen to somebody talk all day, who doesn't learn the same way that everybody else learns, who doesn't want to follow the protocol, or maybe is just not made to follow the protocol the same way that everybody else does, many of those people end up becoming the quote unquote geniuses. They become the ones who change the world. So we know that a lot of the biggest founders that we know of these days, a lot of them didn't finish school. Now, it didn't happen in elementary. Maybe it happened in college. So you look at Zuckerberg at Facebook, you look at somebody like Bill Gates, you notice that these people did not complete college, or at least not at the time that they started out. They dropped out and went and did their own thing because the way of learning that they were being taught simply did not appeal to the way that their brain was wired. But here's the challenge with this, because first of all, not everybody's going to be Bill Gates or Mark Zuckerberg. It's only, I mention their names, y'all know who they are. It ain't that many of them. By the same token, the same process that these guys dropped out of, and that some of our classmates and maybe some of you got called dumb or stupid kids because you weren't following that process, the process hasn't changed that much. I'm talking like 20, 30 years ago. 30 years ago, I was was it 30 years ago, elementary school. The process hasn't changed that much. They're still teaching the exact same process, even though a lot of the world is a lot different. We have a lot more information, and we can access each other's stories now. We got social media, so now I can tell you my story. You can tell me your story. Whereas 30 years ago, I might have never met you. I might never known what your life was like. But now we can all tell each other what we went through and how we disagree with how things went, yet they're still doing things the exact same way. So this is what I mean when I say school sets you up for failure, in that they give you one way to be successful, and anybody who goes against this one way to be successful, you're a failure. But look around the world these days. How many different ways do you see people being successful? By however you define the word success, how many different ways do you see people being successful versus looking at school? They give you one way to succeed. In school, there's only one way you can succeed, which is consume the information, retain and memorize it, and then prove that you retained it by passing the test. That's the only way you can be successful in school. Is there any of you here who got D's and F's on your test and you were looked at as an academic success? Nobody can say that. There's only one way to succeed is you must regurgitate the information that was presented to you exactly as it was presented. And if you don't do that, you're a failure in school. That's the way that they set it up. But look around at life. If you look at 30 different entrepreneurs, you're going to see 30 different ways to be successful. But school gives you one way to be successful. So even though I graduated, I went through the whole process. I graduated, like I told you, I had an educator as a parent. So my mom understood the system. So I was able to understand probably by the time I was in maybe around high school, I started to understand, okay, this is a system here. I wanted to play sports, so I knew to play sports, I needed to be in school so I can at least get the opportunity to play on the sports teams. I said, all right, I just need to do good enough in school. I realized that probably by around the age 15 or 16. Let me just do good enough. My mom's an educator, so she's not going to let me not go to school. So let me just do good enough so I can get, C's and B's. And that's pretty much what I did through high school and college. That gave me enough time so I can be eligible. I can play sports and I can get good enough and I can go try to play a sport professionally. That was my goal. That was my process. And I understood it well enough that I could just follow the system enough that I could do what I wanted to do. Whereas other people, if they didn't have that insight and if they weren't lucky enough to have a teacher for a parent, then they might have got left on the side. They might have got left behind simply because nobody was able to explain the game to them. But that's one of the reasons why I have the show that I have now and the platform that I have is that a lot of what I do on my show and anything that I put out, whether I write it, whether it's live stream or podcast, anything like that, is I'm helping y'all understand the game, what's really going on, as opposed to what's being told to you. See, people tell you is one way, but the real game is a different way. That's one of the things that I do. That's what my platform is called Work on Your Game. It's help you understand, here's the real game. Here's what they're telling you. Here's what's really going on. And they're usually not the same thing. So the better you get at retaining information and regurgitating it, the better you look in school. However, now let's get to point number 2. So we all understand that's how school works. Now here's point number 2. Here's how real life works. Real life is nothing like school. It's almost like the opposite of school. When you were in school, any of you tell me, somebody answer this question. If y'all had a test or a quiz and somebody got caught looking at a book or looking at their notes, or I guess nowadays if a kid gets caught looking at their phone in the middle of a test or a quiz or an exam, what happens to them? That's my question. When you were in school, now when I was in school, we didn't have, I think cell phones existed, but they were like not even fitting in your pocket at the time. But if you got caught looking at, like you had a piece of paper with all the answers on it, or you looked in your textbook, or you looked at your notebook, or you did anything where you consulted outside information in the middle of a test or a quiz in school, what happens? What happens to you if you do that in school? Somebody just answer that question. All of you know the answer. This is not a trick question. It's setting up the second point that I'm going to make here. And I know, again, there's a little bit of lag time here. So Aswan, what's going on, my dude? So Aswan answered the question. He said, you get called a cheater. Exactly. So I remember I was in, I don't know what grade this was, maybe 10th or 11th grade. Yeah, cheated all the time with numeric system back in the day. So you got away with cheating. All right. So Snazzy Caleb said you get a 0. Yeah. So all y'all got it right. So in other words, all y'all answered fail. And who's that? Luana. Right. So all y'all got it right is that, and the answer is you were not allowed. There's a point. You were not allowed to consult any information outside of what was already in your brain in school. So I remember I was in maybe 10th or 11th grade. I don't know what class it was, like English class or communications class, some kind of class we had. And one of my classmates, he had like a little piece of paper. So before the test, this is what we used to do. This is when we didn't have phones. So he would take like the information that was going to be on the test. You either write on a little piece of paper or you write it on your hand, and then like the answers, whatever the answers were. And then during the test, he would just look at his hand and he'd be writing the answers, and the teacher caught him. So I remember this. The teacher caught him. The teacher's name was Mr. Doherty, and he caught the dude looking at his piece of paper or whatever he was looking at, caught him, and then he got a 0, and I don't know, he got sent to the principal's office or whatever. In other words, they called it cheating on the test. He got a 0 on the test, et cetera, et cetera. Here's the point. In school, everything was closed book. You had to, the only way you could pass a test or an exam, and any of you remember taking the SATs or the ACT, like the test that you take when you're trying to get out of, not get out of, but you're graduating high school and you're trying to prove that you're good enough to go to college. You take the SAT, right, or the ACT. That was a closed book test. You're not allowed to you're not allowed to consult any outside information to answer the questions. Let me ask you a question. Check this out. In real life, all of you right now living in real life. Anybody here in college right now? All of you, I'm assuming most of you are adults. You're out of school. In real life, when you have a real challenge, when you have it, yes, SAT and SAT do suck. I do agree. When you have a real challenge in life right now, let's say you had a challenge right now. You had a question that you needed to answer, some information that you needed to access. You needed to deal with some problem in front of you, and you don't know exactly how to handle. Oh, we got one college student. Shout out to the college students in here. So in school, and who's that? A1 Alejandro Santana. Okay. All right. So look, all right, the college students who are in here, let me ask a question. When y'all have tests these days, are y'all allowed to consult outside information in the middle of the test? Or do you have to kind of go off what you already know? And those of you who are not in college, here's the thing. When you have a challenge right now in life, are you allowed to consult outside information? Are you allowed to consult information outside of what you know? Oh, my son is crying right now. Maybe y'all can hear that. But are you allowed to consult outside information when you need to solve a problem right now in your everyday life? Those of you who are not in school. So let's say you had a business problem and you need to solve it and you don't know the answer. Are you allowed to call somebody else and ask them what they think? Are you allowed to go on Google and ask Google if it has information? Are you allowed to go to a book and read the book and see if it has information? Are you allowed to go on Wikipedia or allowed to go to some event? Are you allowed to go to anywhere outside of yourself and consult other references when you need help with a problem in your everyday, quote unquote, real life outside of school? Are you allowed to do that? And of course, I'm asking y'all easy questions that have easy answers. No, you know the answer is, of course, you can. In real life, quote unquote, and when I say real life, I'm just talking about outside of school. In the real world, everything that happens to you is what we call an open book test. And when you were in school, I think maybe once or twice ever, in all the years I was in school, I'm talking about from elementary school to graduating college, I think maybe once or twice we had an open book test. Open book test wasn't even like a real test, right? Because the open book test is like our teacher said you could consult the book during the test. All right, well, what's the point of the test? Because that's the way we were taught. We were indoctrinated that to pass the test, you had to know the information, quote unquote, know the information. We didn't actually know shit. All we did was memorize the information, because by the time you got out of school, how much of it do you remember? None of it. We're going to get to that in a minute. But an open book test was basically saying every question, all you got to do is look through the book and find the answer. But look, check this out. In real life, that's all we do. In real life, all we do is consult the book for answers to every question that we have. Anytime you face a challenge and you don't know the answer from your head, you know you don't have that information, the first thing you do is consult the book. And when I say the book, I mean anything other than your own brain. You're allowed to call somebody and like, yo, Mike, what do you know about this? You're allowed to go to an event to get information. You're allowed to go on Google. You're allowed to look on Wikipedia. You're allowed to pay somebody for access to information. Like when we were in school, I remember we would be in like high school, right? So all of us had the same teacher. So we got, let's say there was a test coming up for a Spanish class, right? So I got Spanish in second period. You got Spanish fourth period. So when we had the Spanish test second period, what I would do is get an extra copy of the test second period. And then somebody who knew I had second period, they got fourth period Spanish. They would say, Dre, grab an extra copy of the test and give it to me so I can look at it, so I know what question is going to be on the test. So when I take it on fourth period, I'm more prepared for the test. All right, if you did that, technically you were cheating in school, and if you do that in real life, that's called business. So in real life, when I did something like, for example, I'll show you an example. This is my book, The Overseas Basketball Blueprint. I wrote this book about how to play basketball overseas, even if you went to a small school or nobody knows you, or you don't have like a long resume, you don't have an agent, nothing like that. What is this book? This book is me basically giving you the answers to the test. So if I'm older, if I'm 40 years old, right? So let's say you're 30 and I went and played overseas. I was 23 years old when I got my first deal overseas. So let's say you want to play overseas and then you hear about my book, and I'm 5 years older than you. You're trying to play overseas. You don't know what to do. All you got to do is get my book. I'm giving you the answers to the test. All you got to do is follow what I did. I'm telling you how I already did it. I'm giving you the answers to the test, and I'll give you the book free. Or even if I want to charge $100 for this book, is it worth it? Because I'm giving you the answers to the test. It will help you pass the test. If we did this in school, I would be a cheater and you would be a cheater. We would both get in trouble. But when we do this in real life, we call it business. So I want y'all to notice something. What we call business in the real world is the exact opposite of what they teach you when you're in school. It's business for me to take all the knowledge that I got to achieve a certain outcome and sell it to another person. We call that business. We call it being an entrepreneur. We call that empowering yourself. We call it, helping out the community. We call it giving back. We call it creating value, right? We put all these positive terms on it in the business world. But in school, if I did this exact same thing, I take the Spanish test on Monday, you got the Spanish test on Wednesday, and I give you the answers because I already took the test, I would get in trouble. You would get in trouble. We might both get kicked out of school for cheating, quote unquote, in school. But in business, it's a positive thing to do. So I want y'all to understand something. Here's the thing I want y'all to notice. Everything that you need to be successful in entrepreneurship, not all of it. Let me be clear. Not all of it, but much of it is the exact opposite of what you need to be successful in school. Think about that. Let that sink in, what I just explained to you. If you really let that sink in, it makes a whole lot of sense, doesn't it? Somebody said, what about business classes in college? I will address that. Thank you for asking that question. I will address that. What are you majoring in? A1 Alejandro, what are you majoring in college? I think you said you were a college student. I'm interested. I want to know what's going on college campuses these days. I'm interested to know. Colleges won't have me come speak though, because I'm saying stuff like this, so they wouldn't invite me to speak. So I got to get it from y'all who are actually on the inside. So anyway, but this is what I want y'all to think about. Oh, you're majoring in business? That's funny. You can still do good in business. I majored in business. All right, so it's not like it's doomsday for you. I majored in business. I'm a businessman. I own a business nowadays. But I will tell you that nothing that I learned on that campus got me ready for what I do now. I will tell you that. And there's a reason for that. And I'm going to get to that later on. But if I forget, make sure you remind me. So here's the thing. School is designed to create employees. And there's nothing wrong with being an employee. I run a business. So in running my business, as my business expands, I see my business one day having 100 people working here. And they're all going to be employees. So there's nothing wrong with being an employee. I can't sit here and shit on employment and then ask somebody to be my employee. That doesn't make any sense. We make choices of how we want to live our lives and how we run our businesses. Like my parents were employees, like my sister's an employee. I know a whole lot of people who are employees. Nothing wrong with being an employee. Okay. If you want to be a business owner though, understand something. School trains you to be an employee. It does not train you to be a business owner. And think about it. Who are your professors? What do your professors actually do for a living? I mean, what do your professors actually do for a living? They are employees. Your professors are employees of the university that they work for. Doesn't matter what subject they teach. They're employees of the university. So how is an employee going to teach you how to be an entrepreneur? Somebody tell me. How can an employee teach you how to be an entrepreneur? They can't. So this is why I just said what they teach you in school, what they train you to do in school is the opposite of what you need to do as an entrepreneur. Doesn't mean you can't be an entrepreneur just because you went to school. Again, I'm an entrepreneur. I went to school. I have a bachelor's degree. I have a 4-year business degree. But the stuff that I learned to be a business person, I learned all of it outside of college. Doesn't mean that college was worthless. I'm not saying that. But some of my best friends are people I met in college. I learned things in college, such as there are good things that college teaches you. So let me say that right now, just so people don't think I'm just trashing college, because I'm not trashing college. If I had a chance to go to college again, like if I was 18 right now and somebody said, Dre, you can either go to college or start your business right now, what would you do? I would go to college again because I wanted to play basketball, right? So I needed that 4 years of college so I could develop my social skills, my people skills. I could become more mature, and so I could work on my game because I wasn't good enough to play pro out of high school. I need to go to college and get better. So I'm not trashing college. I want to make sure everybody understands that. The thing about college, what was I just saying? Oh yeah, in college you learn how to manage your time. You meet people. You learn how to be more social. You get a little bit of autonomy. You got like semi-autonomy to where you're free to kind of move about how you want, especially if you're not living at home. So you get to be on the dorm or your apartment. You get to party, stay up late, not go to class, get drunk, bring girls home or guys home, whatever you're into, boys or girls, whatever. You get to do all of that, but at the same time, you're not 100% independent, because if something goes wrong, you could call home and be like, yo, mom, I need some money. Something happened. You're semi-autonomous. I think that time period for a lot of people is necessary. So I don't think I don't think school is a bad thing at all. But I just want y'all to understand, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to get into the business world, a lot of what they teach you on a college campus is not going to help you get there. It will help you in some foundational pieces: discipline, time management, people skills, building relationships. All of those things are great for college, and you could use these in business. But as far as actually running a business, school teaches you how to be an employee. And this is something that I said this probably about a week or two ago. I don't know where I said it. I got so many platforms, I forget where I said it. But schools, hospitals, courtrooms, and jails are all designed the same way. Think about that one. In America, at least. Schools, hospitals, courthouses, and jails. If you ever been into, some of you never been inside of a jail. I ain't never really been inside of a jail, but I've been to a jail, picked somebody up from a jail. Those places are all designed the same way. Schools, hospitals, courthouses, and jails. In America. Why is this? It's because they're all run off the same type of system. It's all based on compliance. People go and work there and they get to feel a little bit of power, even though they don't actually have real power. They are just working at a job. I see my son there. He doesn't like it either. So this is the whole process of how things work, just generally in America. But that's a bigger topic that we'll get into at a later date. The whole point is, I talked about this in episode 15, 18 of my podcast. Life is an open book test. This is the point that I'm making. Life is an open book test, meaning anytime you face a problem in life, you can consult whatever or whoever you want to solve that problem. And life doesn't penalize you just because you looked in the book. You don't get extra points for knowing everything in life. You get extra points for solving problems. When you produce results in life, you get rewards. It doesn't matter who helped you. If you get 10 people helping you and you produce a result, you get the money. If nobody helps you and you don't produce a result, it's not like it's equal. All right, you don't get nothing because you didn't produce anything. In life, we're talking about performance and results. School is about how you do things. Life is about, do you do things? There's a big difference between the two. In school, you have to pass the test a certain way by getting all the information out of your head. In life, you just got to pass the test, period. It doesn't matter how you do it. So that means if I get all of you who are watching me right now to help me solve a problem and I solve it, then I win. I get the reward. I get the trophy. It doesn't matter that all y'all help me. If I solve the problem and nobody helped me, I get the same trophy. The trophy is not bigger. I don't get more money or more admiration just because I did it by myself. This is why in life it's a good thing, especially in business, that you want to collaborate with other people. You don't need to do everything by yourself in life, because the reward is exactly the same whether you do it by yourself or you do it with 20 people. CL Keith, I appreciate the badge. So you all have to understand this. This is another thing that school doesn't teach you, because in school, here's another thing about school. When you take a test in school, if you get caught peeking on the paper of the person next to you, you're cheating, right? And I don't know how they do it in college, but I guess in college the seats are spaced out. But in elementary school, right, you weren't allowed to look on your neighbor's paper. If you got caught looking on your neighbor's paper, you were a cheater. I remember in like first grade or something, we had a test. They used to do these, I think they still do the standardized tests, like the city tests and state tests. When they had the tests, right, I remember once our teacher put up, like, she got these cardboard cutouts, and she would put the cardboard cutouts in between every desk so that it was hard for me to look at the person next to me, and it was hard for them to look at me. If I tried to look to this side or this side, all I would see was this big cardboard wall in between us. And that was all designed to make sure that I didn't look at them, they didn't look at me, and we didn't exchange information. We were not allowed to collaborate. But I want you to understand something. When you're in the entrepreneurial world, if you don't collaborate, you're probably going to go out of business. In the entrepreneurial world, you can't be doing everything by yourself. In the entrepreneurial world, in the business world, in the real life world, forget about, you don't even have to be an entrepreneur. Just in business, period, you want to use other people and allow other people to use you. Any of you is there anybody watching this right now, you were out of work and you were trying to get a job, and you were able to get a job because of a relationship that you had. You knew somebody who knew somebody who knew somebody. And through that relationship, you were able to get yourself back into the employment world. Any of you ever had that happen? I have. Even when I was playing ball, there were times I got jobs just because I had a relationship with this person and they knew this person. And because of that relationship, I was able to get a job. It wasn't just based off my talent. Yes, I had talent. I had game, but a whole bunch of people had game. It was like 100 people with game trying to get the same job. I got it because I had a relationship. See, in school, you do that, you fail. In school, you do that, you get called a cheater and you get a problem. You got a problem. But in life, if you do that, you're smart. We call it networking, right? Isn't that what we call it? Networking, when you utilize your relationships to move up, to get the next thing done, to do the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. That's business. That's how business works. It's all about relationships. Business is not about being good. Yes, you should be good, but it's really about relationships. You want things to last, you have to have relationships with people. Like in my business, my best and longest tenured clients are because I have a relationship with them, not because I'm such a genius. I am a genius, but it's because of my relationships. It's not because I'm so smart. If you don't have relationships, then you're going to be in a transactional business. The problem with transactional business is you always got to find new people. And that's the hardest thing to do in business, is to get new people into your business. The easiest thing to do in business is to sell more stuff to the people who've already bought stuff from you. To sell more stuff to the people who already know you. That's what business is really about. Again, school teaches you the opposite of this. It's not that school is saying that it's bad necessarily, but they teach you to do things the exact opposite of this. So they're training you to do things that will cause you to fail if you go into entrepreneurship. Everybody following what I'm saying here? That's why it matters so much. And that's why I'm saying school sets you up for failure. Not because they're trying to make you a failure. School is trying to make you into an employee. Now, if you want to be an employee, whatever school teaches you, do it. Now, if you want to do something other than being an employee, then you should be looking at what school is teaching you with a critical eye and asking yourself, okay, how can I take what they're teaching me here and how can I adjust so that I can use this in what I want to do? And here's the thing that I want y'all to know is that it's 2022 when I'm recording this, in case anybody watches this later. 10 years from now, I don't even say 10 years, by 2030, almost everybody is you're going to be living and working like an entrepreneur, even if you are not technically an entrepreneur. You're going to be living and working like an entrepreneur. In other words, you're going to be getting paid based on your performance, not just based on showing up. So any of you has a job right now that's a show up job. In other words, you get paid because you showed up, even if you don't do anything. That's going away. That is going away. You are not just going to get paid just because you showed up. So if you're on salary right now and you get paid X amount of dollars, you get paid 60 grand a year for doing this job. And it doesn't matter whether you perform or don't perform. So you could be doing 10 times more than the person next to you. Y'all both making 60 grand. That's going to change. You're going to start getting paid based on your performance. And if you don't perform, you don't get paid. Or you only going to get the bare minimum to the point that you can't even pay your bills. And then you're going to be talking about, what's the thing they call it? The living wage. People are going to be like, yeah, I got to make a living wage. No, you got to have a living wage level of performance to get a living wage. That's what they're going to start saying. Now, right now, there's a group of people who are trying to push against this, and they're just saying, well, everybody got to get paid a certain amount just because. People just got to get paid a certain amount just because. I was talking to this young lady who worked at the front desk of my building a few months ago. She doesn't work here anymore, but she was saying she was looking for a new job. And I was like, well, how much money are you trying to make? She said, well, I need to make a living wage. And I didn't get into the conversation with her, but it got me thinking that, and she's young. She's probably like 20, 21. So she doesn't understand things on a level that I understand things. I didn't say it to her, but if we ever had a deeper conversation, I would say to her, look, you don't deserve a living wage just because you're alive. I don't know if any of you thought that or you've been taught that or who you heard it from, the Barack Obama or Stacey Abrams or whoever been telling you this stuff. You do not deserve a living wage just because you're alive. You get paid based on your level of performance. Two things that I'd say all the time in my world, you come into my world, you're going to hear these phrases all the time. You are in a performance and results-based business. This is not I'm alive, so give me something based business. This is a performance-based business. If you do not perform, you get nothing. Everybody heard that? You don't perform, you get nothing. When you perform, you can write your own ticket. This is why I became an entrepreneur. This is why I was attracted to even before I got into entrepreneurship. When I was in college, I was attracted to sales. Are any of you familiar with network marketing? I remember I heard about network marketing when I was like 20, 21. I was interested in network marketing because it said unlimited income potential. And when this is a random dude on my campus, he was on my college campus. He didn't even go to school where I went to school. He was just, who knows why he was even in town. He was just a random dude. But I appreciate meeting this man because he introduced me to the concept of network marketing. He said in network marketing, you get paid based on your level of performance. So if you perform a little bit, you get paid a little bit. But if you perform a lot, you get paid a lot. I said, that's what I want to do. I said, that's what I want to do with my life right there. I said, I want to get paid based on my performance. Because if I'm performing and this dude next to me is not performing, it ain't no way he and I should be making the same amount of money. That don't make no sense. That didn't make any sense to me then. It doesn't make sense to me now. And it won't make sense to me tomorrow. What do y'all think about that? I think everybody should be paid based on their level of performance. And if you don't perform, you get nothing. And if you got nothing, and that means you out on the street or you in trouble, you in trouble. That's the game that we're in. Again, you got to understand something about me. Also, in addition to everything I've told you here today, I'm an athlete. I come from the sports world. And coming from the sports world, everybody does not win. In sports, there are winners and there are losers. So when the Lakers play against the Knicks, then somebody's going to win, somebody's going to lose. And right now, they're like the Lakers. The Lakers are trash right now, but y'all get the point. Somebody's going to win, somebody's going to lose. All right? And in business, the good news about business is that everybody can win because everybody doesn't have the same metric. We don't all have the same scoreboard in business. Like everybody's trying to make money, but I might be trying to make $1 million. You might be trying to make 80 grand. You can make your 80. I can make my $1 million. Everybody can win. It's all good. If I produce $1 million worth of value, I should make it $1 million in money. You produce 80 grand in value, you get 80 grand in money. It's all good. But we should not both be getting 500,000 if I'm producing $1 million and you're producing 80. That makes no sense. I'm pissed off. Like, wait a minute. I produce $1 million worth of value while I'm only getting half of it. And he only produced 80 grand worth of value. Why is he getting more than 10 times what he produced? Not more, it's less than 10 times, but you get the point. Way more than what he produced. That doesn't make any sense. We should all get paid based on what we produce. School does not set you up for that. It sets you up that everybody kind of gets judged on the same scale, and I don't agree with that. And actually, it doesn't even matter whether I agree with it or not. Let's just look at how the world actually works when you get out there. Nick quoted that 100 mental game best practices. Yes, part of the Bulletproof Bundle, those of you who don't have that book. So, excuse me. So as I was saying, I'm still on my second point here. In life, we're in an open book test. Open book test means you can access whatever information that you want. So somebody said it's a finite game is made up of scarcity by a small group of humans, but real life is an infinite game, finite, infinite game. I know about that book. It's written by Simon Sinek. So somebody brought this up. I'm going to address this question. I'm going to address this comment right here because somebody said this. And it's a good comment that you made based on the vacuum of the point that you're trying to make, but it doesn't fit into the bigger picture of what I'm saying here, but I'll address it directly. So Simon Sinek is the guy who wrote that book, Finite and Infinite Games. I did a training for his company about, when was this? Was this last summer? I think it was the last summer, not this year, but the year before. And when I came into their world, they were like, well, no, give us an idea of what your presentation is going to be. I gave a presentation based on this book right here called Work on Your Game. Use the pro athlete mindset to dominate your game in business, sports, and life. So who's this person who left this comment? Akashi Consultants. Okay, let me explain to you how this works. So in this book, I told them that I was going to give a presentation based on this. And this is a presentation I've given 100 times already, by the way. This is based on my background as a professional athlete and how I utilized that background and translated it into the business world. So when I told them, the people on their team, what I was going to talk about and what it was going to sound like, one of the guys on their teams came on. No, Simon Sinek wrote another book called Infinite Game. I'll show it to you right now. All right, so you're talking about a different book. So maybe there's more than one book called Infinite Game, but he wrote a book called Infinite Game, and I'll show it to you right now. So there it is, the Infinite Game, Simon Sinek, right there on Amazon. It has 5,000 reviews. So there you go. So Simon Sinek's book, you're talking about an older book. Simon Sinek's book is probably a newer version of the book that you're referring to, but they're talking about the same thing. And anyway, it's still addressing your comment. So let me finish what I'm saying. So one of the guys on Simon Sinek's team, because he wrote basically the new version of this, He said, well, Dre, you should change around a lot of what you're going to say because, again, Akashi Consultant is the same concept. It's the same concept. Let me finish explaining. I'll tell you. He said, you should change what you're going to say because what you're talking about, Dre, is a finite game. You're talking about people can win and people can lose, but Simon's book is about it being an infinite game and that anybody can win and everybody can win because Simon's business model is all based around how do you make teams win and people can feel included and how do you create this inclusive environment and everybody can win and everybody can be successful. That's what he was explaining to me. It's the same thing that you're saying here, Akashi, in your comment. I said to him, I completely respect that. I'm a fan of Simon Sinek. I have bought his products. I have been to his engagements. I've been to conferences where he has spoken and I've spoken as well. I said to him, I get that. I respect it. However, I'm not Simon Sinek. My company's called Work on Your Game. My company's not called The Infinite Game. My company's called Work on Your Game. And in the world that I come from, everybody does not win. I come from the professional sports world. So Akashi, I don't know what world you come from, but you know what professional sports is, right? Okay, so when the Lakers play the New York Knicks, can everybody win? No. So let's go to I'm going to pull up the NBA.com app so we can make sure that everybody's on the same page here. So last night, the Atlanta Hawks played against the Detroit Pistons. Both teams did not win. The Cleveland Cavaliers played against the Boston Celtics. Both teams did not win. The LA Lakers played against the Minnesota Timberwolves. Both teams did not win. These are finite games, folks. I come from the world of finite games. Everybody does not win. At the same time, in the business world, there is a way for everybody to win. But at the same time I'm saying that, there are some times where everybody does not win. And this is the balance that people have to understand. Life is not set up that everybody's supposed to win all the time. That's not the way it works. Everybody can't win. There's never going to be a utopian society where everybody is quote unquote winning or everybody is quote unquote successful. It's not going to happen. Let me tell you why it's not going to happen. Not because there's a lack of resources and not because there's a lack of opportunity for people to be successful. It's simply because people are people. Humans are humans. You cannot make somebody be successful who is not willing to do the things necessary to become successful. Any of you who considers yourself successful in anything, any of you who went to school, did you have classmates who were sat in the same classroom as you, got the same textbook as you, got the same lesson from the same teacher as you, and still failed the test and you passed the test? Did any of you ever have that happen? Yes or no? Any of you who plays a sport, Alejandro Santana, looks like you're an athlete. I see you got a basketball in your profile picture. You ever played basketball with somebody who had relatively as much talent as you, yet they did not succeed and they were not able to do anything with their skill and their ability and their opportunity? I'm pretty sure you've come across a lot of players like that. Any of you who runs a business, have you ever known somebody who had the same opportunity, the same relative amount of intelligence as you, and the same opportunities to do something as you, and did not achieve what you have achieved up to this point in your life, even if you're still on your journey of achieving more? I'm still on my journey of achieving more. I know people who come from the same background as me, same neighborhood, had the same similar home upbringing as me, did not achieve the same things that I've achieved up to this point. Not because they didn't have the opportunity, they didn't do the fucking work. No politician, no program, no hashtag, no movement, no societal change is going to make somebody be successful if they are not willing to do the work to be successful. Snazzy said you played football in high school. Okay, did you have teammates who didn't want to do the work and they didn't get in the games, even though they had ability? They could play, but they didn't want to do the work. So therefore, they didn't. You probably had some guys who were good enough to be on the team, didn't make the team because they didn't want to do the work. Some guys who were good enough to get in the game didn't get in the game because they didn't want to do the work. Guys who were good enough to be on a winning team were on a losing team because they didn't want to do the work. This is human nature, folks. You cannot legislate human nature. See, this is the problem of what a lot of politicians try to push on us. And we got elections coming up in another week or so. A lot of politicians try to push this idea, and this is all politicians, but it's mostly coming from people who are on what we call progressives these days, is that they push this idea that if we just create this law, this rule, and this legislature, everything will be better. We just need to make these rules so that these people can be successful. No, what we need to do is not about the politicians. It's about people themselves have to decide that they're going to do what it takes to be successful. And a lot of people simply are not willing to do the things necessary to be successful. Therefore, it doesn't matter who wins the election, what law you put in place, what programs you put in to make it easier for this group and harder for that group, failures will still be failures. See, the thing is, here's the thing y'all got to understand about life. And y'all probably heard a bunch of people say this, motivational speakers, people like myself, anyone else, different versions of what I'm about to say. Successful people will always find a way to be successful, and failures will always find a way to fail. Doesn't matter what situation you put them in. A success-minded individual will always find a way to be successful. Does any of you, anybody who's watching this right now, does any of you come from an environment where a lot of people come up short? Maybe you didn't have a ton of resources. Maybe you didn't have a lot of positive role models or influences around you. Maybe it was a lot of negative around you, and you could have easily chosen a route to go negative. You could have easily chosen a route that would have had you in and out of the judicial system, the legal system, in and out of prisons. Could have got yourself killed. You could have been on drugs. You could have been dealing drugs. You could have just been a loser back in the neighborhood that you're from. You had that option if you wanted to, but you chose to do something different, and now you're where you are. Does any of you have that background? By the same token, does any of you know someone who had all the opportunity? They had both parents at home. Their parents had a little bit of money. They had all the opportunities given to them. They had basically a yellow brick road path to success if they wanted to take it, but they chose some other things and didn't get it. Of course, all of you know people from both categories, which means success is not about it. Yes, you can set people up to make success easier for them. I have a son. I want to set him up to make success easier for him than it would have been for me coming from my back. I want to make it easier for him than it was for me. At the same time, he got to make some choices. I'm going to give him the tools, but he got to make some choices. If he makes some bad choices, he's going to put himself in a bad spot. And that's not because he wasn't set up to be successful, because he made some bad decisions. And if he ends up successful, it's not because I made him successful. It's because he made the decisions to become successful. And a lot of people don't want to own that. Politicians won't ever say this, because if a politician says what I just said, then what do we need the politician for? See, this is why I try to teach y'all critical thinking skills, is because when you understand these things, you gotta understand the angles of people when they're talking to you. See, I have nothing. I'm not trying to sell you on any idea that I don't need you to agree with me. But if you disagree with me, explain to me logically how you can, because I know my arguments are logically sound. See, a politician needs you to believe that you need them, because that's their whole business model is based on you needing them, because that's how they get votes. See, I don't need you to vote for me, so I don't need you to agree with me. If you disagree with me, it doesn't matter. It doesn't hurt my business. But see, if your favorite politician, if you disagree with them, it hurts their business because they don't have your vote. Therefore, they can't keep their job. See, they have an angle. My angle is to just give you the game. Their angle is they need you to do something for them, because if they don't have you, they might not win that election. If they don't win that election, they don't have their job, which limits their access to certain things, which limits them getting to what they want to get to. See, this is what y'all got to understand about people. So let me see what got said here. He said, people really want to succeed. They will find a way no matter what. Yes, self-determinism. Malcolm X talked about this. Every successful person talks about it. Tony Robbins talks about it. Who's somebody who's out here now? Eric Thomas talks about it. Jim Rohn talks about it. Every person who talks about success talks about self-determinism. It all comes down to the person. Yes, you can set up the environment and do a lot of things, but it all comes down to the person, period. The bottom line of everything, after all the Instagrams and the memes and the books and the schools and the YouTube and all of this, it comes down to what that individual is going to do when they look in the mirror. Akashi says, not everyone can work and not everyone should have to work. Some people have physical health or even mental health issues. For example, Akashi, you're moving the goalposts. You're moving the goalposts to find a way to make yourself right. Now, that's a logical fallacy, what you just did there. Moving the goalposts, logical fallacy. So you were talking about infinite game versus finite game. I just knocked down that argument. Now you're moving the goalposts and trying to create a different conversation based on the subject you could be right about. Listen, I know what I'm talking about. All right, that's why I have the brand that I have and I have the platform that I have. I know what I'm talking about. You said some people have, not everyone can work and not everyone should have to work. What the hell are you talking about? Everybody, it's not that everyone should have to, but man was made to work. All right, that's in the Bible. That man was made to work. All right, that's why God told you. The very first thing God told you was that in the beginning, he created the heavens and the earth. All right, even I'm no expert on the Bible, but that's the very first thing he tells you. First thing he did was go to work. God worked for a whole week, then he took Sunday off. All right, does anybody disagree with that? First thing God tells you that he did work. And any other religious texts, I haven't read them, But I guarantee you they talking about going to work. All right, they all talk about going to work. Man was made to work. When people retire, usually they end up dying within 2 years simply because they don't have anything to do. So yes, not everyone can work. What do you mean? Not everyone can work. What are you talking about? Some people have physical health or even mental health issues. For example, let me enlighten you to something. Akashi, you're running a consultant. You said Asati consultant. I'm assuming you run a consultancy. Well, let me give you some information you use in your consultancy. Examples do not prove arguments. Just because you can throw an example out of anything does not prove an argument. You prove an argument with logic and reason. You don't prove arguments with examples. I give you an example of a lot of things. It doesn't prove the argument. I give you an example of me getting in a fist fight and beating somebody up. That doesn't prove that I'm violent. All right, so examples do not prove arguments. And if you're running a consultancy, you should be careful throwing that kind of stuff out there. Cause an able-bodied person being complacent or avoidant should probably try to get better, though. I don't even know what that means. So we still vote without dollars for your business to succeed or not, but I agree with you on many politicians today. Vote without dollars for your business to succeed or not. Yes, of course, by providing value. That's the whole point. Bible also says stone adulterers and not to wear clothing with different threads. Again, you're moving the goalposts here. The point about me giving out the Bible was God worked. All right, that's the point. And I think you understand that point, Akash. Come on. Don't even try it. I see what you're trying. Nice try. I award you. I give you an E for effort, but please stop it. So let me finish my point here. So the best questions in life are insights. I talked about this in episode 1177. This is about insights. You get insights from engaging and interacting with other people. School teaches you to only get all the information from your own brain. Real life teaches you to engage with other people. That's why you go to events. All right. That's why you go to events. That's why you sign up for courses. That's why you join masterminds. That's why hopefully that's why you follow people on social media. If y'all using social media, any consuming you do on social media, do it to consume information that will help you think better, not just random stuff that's sucking time away from you. That's all social media is designed to do, is really suck your time away. But even if you look at my stuff on social media, I'm gonna give you something that's gonna help you think on a higher level. So when you consume my stuff, that's what I'm gonna do. I can't speak for anybody else on social media. I can speak for myself. So let me move to point number 3. We are talking about how school sets you up for failure. Our teachers and parents dictated to us when we were coming up in school. And any of you who's younger, anybody here who's if you're under the age of 30, you tell me if you see this happening as well. Kashi said, you don't believe in the Bible? Okay. If you don't believe in the Bible, fine, then we're having 2 different conversations, but this is my life. So I do believe in the Bible, so I will go with that. He said European mythology to prove your point is a logical fallacy called appeal to authority. Well, yes, appeal to authority is technically a logical fallacy, but the Bible is a text that America was built on biblical principles. That's a fact. America was built on biblical principles. You read the Constitution, you read the Declaration of Independence, you read the words of the people who wrote that document, you know that the Bible was built on biblical principles. And I'm not sure if you live in America, maybe you don't, but anybody who lives in America understand this country became the country that it is because it was built on principles from the Bible. That is just a fact, period. So even if you don't agree with the Bible, if you live in America and you're taking advantage of the opportunity here in America, and I don't know anybody who lives in America who's thinking about leaving, I know a bunch of people who are not in America who want to get here, then we have to agree that the biblical principles that established this country made it the country that it is. And what's happening right now is a bunch of people are trying to tear down those biblical principles and cancel the ideas that come from the Bible to build some other kind of society. And we already know from experience in other countries that it does not work. That's a different conversation for a different day. Yes, America was built on biblical principles. That's just a fact. Read the Declaration of Independence. Read the Constitution. It's in there. They mention God. They mention biblical principles over and over and over again. And if you read the Bible, again, I'm not an expert on the Bible, but if you read it, you will notice many similarities between what they're talking about and what's happening in the Bible. So anyway, moving on to my 3rd point. Now I'll address more comments at the end of this. Our teachers and parents dictated to us when we were growing up. This is what it is, and this is why it is, and that's it. You weren't really, where I come from, you weren't really allowed to question your teachers or your parents. If you question your teachers or your parents, they would actually get mad at you, and you would get punished for questioning your parents or questioning your teachers. You're not allowed to question me. I said what it is, and that's just what it is. These days, I think a lot of in schools, I think you're able to question the professors these days. Nowadays, I see teachers getting canceled, right, for teaching the wrong stuff. So you definitely can question them. You can even shout them down. But the thing is, when we were in school, we were not challenged to formulate our own opinions. And this is the thing, just generally in school, this is what happens, is that you're not challenged to formulate your own opinions. And I know some people who are professors. I'm talking about college level professors. And I see some of the things that college professors are teaching that are very, very opinion based. And I always wonder to myself, and I've been trying to do this. So any of you know a college professor who'd be willing to come on and be interviewed by me? Because I want to interview a college professor. I'm trying to find one who has some opinions that I disagree with so we can have a healthy conversation. But interestingly enough, a lot of these people won't come on and interview with me because they see like they're not going to be able to shout me down with their bullshit, and I'll call them out on their nonsense. Is that if you're teaching an opinion-based idea, you have to be open to being challenged by your students. But I find that I'm looking at these professors and I'm like, wait a minute. There was this woman. I don't know if y'all saw this. This is about 2 months ago. It was a black chick. She was a professor. I don't know what school she teaches at, but she was at Washington, D.C. speaking on like Capitol Hill, wherever it was. And she was being questioned. And I believe it was one of the senators asking her, he was asking her about abortion because the woman was talking about abortion, this college professor. She says, I teach to my students that they can have abortions if they want to have abortions, et cetera, et cetera. And the man was saying, the senator was asking her about women having abortions. And the woman kept saying, instead of saying women, she said, a human capable of giving birth. She kept saying that, a human capable of giving birth. Every time he said woman, she would correct him by saying a human capable of giving birth. And I'm looking at her like, all right, this is a college professor. So here's my question. And it's not even about whether she's wrong or right. Let's say I was a student in her classroom and I said, can't we just call this person a woman? Why are we calling them a human capable of giving birth? Why can't we just call them a woman? And if she strongly believes that we must label them a human capable of giving birth instead of calling them a woman, and I disagree with her and I'm a student in her class, how do I pass that class? Is she going to give me an F in the class because I won't go along with her view of calling someone a human capable of giving birth instead of calling them a woman? Because, again, America is built on biblical principles. God said he created man, Adam, and then he created woman from the rib of the man. And the woman gives birth. So for her to say a human capable of giving birth, well, what other human are we talking about? As far as I know, you got men, you got women. Is there anything else? Oh, now we got this whole movement. So, now we got people who are not man or woman. They're fluid. They're gender fluid. They're they, them. All right. Fuck all of that. All right. Now I'm on the record just so everybody understands. All right. I'm not with any of that. Man, woman. That's where I'm at. Now you want to disagree with that? Everyone, you have a right to think whatever you want to think. But what I'm asking is not whether you agree with that or not. It's if you're a professor on a college campus and you believe that they're a human capable of giving birth, and I'm a student and I believe it's a woman, how do I pass your class if you have this belief that I disagree with? Is it just your way or the highway? This is the challenge that I'm asking. And this is the thing, this is what I'm talking about in schools. All right, how is a student supposed to get an education? Because educate does not mean give people information. Educate means to withdraw from inside of another person. To educate somebody means to get knowledge that is already in them and draw it out of them. That's what education actually means. Educate does not mean me tell you information and you remember it. See, this is the reason why school sets you up for failure. Because they make you think that being educated means you read a whole bunch of books and you took a bunch of classes and you got a bunch of information. That is not what education means. Education means you can read books and get information, but the whole point is to cause you to think. It's to challenge you to think and to formulate your own ideas. That's what education is supposed to do. But that's not what it does. What education is doing, especially these days, and it was doing it back in the day as well. Back in the day, it wasn't as strong and we didn't know about it as much because we didn't have social media. But what it does now is it's indoctrinating. It's telling you this is the way you're supposed to think. This is what to think instead of how to think. And those are two different things. See, when I put material out there, I'm trying to challenge you in how you think. I'm not trying to tell you what to think. I'm telling you what I think. And then I'm telling you, here's why I think it. I will lay out logically why I think this and where I got it from. You don't have to agree with me, but if you disagree with me, break down how you think what you think. And if you can't break it down and explain it, then I'm going to call bullshit. Like, that's what I do. Right? Just in case anybody didn't know. So This Akashi individual who's in here talking about what they're talking about. Okay, I'm breaking down what you're saying. All right, give me a logical breakdown of what you're saying. You're not giving me a logical breakdown. You're saying you don't believe in the Bible. Well, what do you believe in? Just whatever you're thinking that day. No, whatever way the wind blows. Here's the thing. I talked about this in my podcast as well. Speaking of the Bible, and it's not about religion. It is, but it's not. Is that when I'm talking to someone who follows a religion, I don't care which one it is, Judaism, Muslim, Christianity, Catholicism, or anyone in between. When I'm dealing with someone who follows a religion on any level, I know that me and that person can at least find a happy medium in our conversation, even when we disagree. And here's why. Because the person who follows a religion has a baseline of truth. They have a baseline of truth. See, a religion is a baseline of truth that says, here's what it is, and this is the final word anytime there's a disagreement. See, a person who's a Christian, if they're not sure about something, they can look to the Bible and say, well, let's see, all right, we disagree. If two Christians disagree on a point, you know what they do eventually? If they can't, talk it out, they say, let's see what the Bible says. And whatever the Bible says, bottom line, period. Two Catholics, two Jews, two Muslims, they say, let's go see what the Bible says. That's the bottom line, period. There's a baseline of truth that they both agree is going to be the final judge on what is and what's not. And see, when somebody like Akashi Consulting, person who was in here, says they don't believe in the Bible, well, what is your baseline of truth? See, if you don't have a baseline of truth, that means you can move the goalpost whenever you feel like it to change the argument to fit whatever you want to say. The problem with that is that if everybody does that, then what we get is chaos, because everybody just changes their argument to whatever they want it to be each day of the week. All right, so here's how I feel on Monday. Oh, you know what? Today I feel like I'm a girl. Oh, tomorrow, you know what? I'm a boy. Tomorrow, you know what? Day after that, I'm not a girl or a boy. I'm a they or a them. I can just, whatever I feel that day, that's who I am. There's no baseline. If everybody's doing that, then what do we get? We get entropy. We get a state of chaos because everybody's just changing their opinions and their views based on however they feel in that moment. And I understand that when you're talking about an 8-year-old, but a grown adult should have a little bit more sense in that. And if everybody is deciding that we're just going to change our opinions however we feel that moment, that day, then we're going to have problems. So this is the issue when somebody says, well, they say they don't believe in the Bible. Okay, fine. You don't believe in the Bible. Okay, what do you believe in? What do you believe? Do you believe in a dictionary? Now you got people changing the definitions of words. All right, let's redefine this word to make it mean something different so they can fit the narrative and the story that I want to tell. Here's the problem. If everybody's making up different definitions for the same word, we can't even communicate with each other. And this is how we get chaos. So y'all see how this state of chaos is growing in the world? Is that we don't have a baseline of what's a boy or a girl, what's a man or a woman, what do we believe in, what defines a word. People are trying to destroy these foundational beliefs and truths. So now we get chaos. And this is why we're getting more chaos in the world. And you get people coming in here trying to make an argument and moving the goalposts. And then they say, well, I don't believe in the Bible. So you don't have a baseline of truth. And it's not about the Bible. What is your baseline of truth? If it's not the Bible, what is it? And you don't have one. And that's the whole point that I'm making. And this is where we get chaos. So as I said, the issue is money. I went to college, pick a major, asking myself, answering questions about how much money can that major make you? Yeah, a lot of people ask that question as one based on if you're planning on going into employment. I wasn't planning on going into employment, so I didn't ask myself that question. I was just interested in the concept of business, so that's why I majored in business. But I get that. There are a lot of people who do that. They pick their major based on how much money can I make. So the question is, how do we balance that? Get a secure job versus being a critical thinker, and the way to make money is unknown. Well, that's a kind of a false dichotomy. You can be a critical thinker and have a secure job. The way you think does not necessarily mean what you do in life. Because you can be a critical thinker and just be quiet about it, right? You don't have to say it out loud. I'm a critical thinker. I'm an entrepreneur. I run my own business. I can say whatever I want. I can't be canceled or fired or shut down or anything. Nobody can do anything to me. But if I worked at a job, there's some things that I say on my platform that I could not say without getting fired. That's how it is. That's what it is. That's the truth. I like my sister's a professor at a university. I couldn't work at the university that she works at and still do the stuff that I do and say the stuff that I say every day. I wouldn't have a job. I get fired quick. I was talking to a guy who was asking me to He wanted me to come speak on his campus for an event, which might still happen and might not happen. And he brought like a couple of people who worked with him we did a Zoom call. And I know for a fact, based on some of the questions they were asking me, because this guy had looked into some of my material, that he was like, look, some of the things that you say on social media, some of our students are going to see that and they're going to question you about it. And I said, oh, let's do it. Me against a bunch of 18 and 19-year-old college kids who think they're smart. They want to challenge me logically on some things that I said. Let's do it. That'll be fun for me. But that's not really what his challenge was. His challenge was that if he hires me and those kids get mad at him for hiring me, they can't do anything to me, so they're going to do something to him. See, that's how you got to understand the game. So when I say work on your game, this is what I'm talking about. Y'all got to understand second and third level consequences of actions, not just what you say and how somebody responds to it. That's the easy part. It's what happens after that, after that, after that. Anyway, let me see what else we got in here. Somebody said, have you ever read Controlling Words, Controlling Minds by Michael Knowles? I have not. I haven't heard of that book. Andrew, thank you for sharing it with me. I got to look that up. And let me see. Kashi said, well, the last thing Kashi said, some people want a theocracy, but there's supposed to be a separation of church and state. We're communicating from two completely different places. What are you talking about? I'm not talking about a theocracy. I don't even consider myself to be a Christian, but I can accept the Bible as the principal piece that built America. Those are two different things. It's not saying a theocracy. That's a false dichotomy. Anyway, let's move on to, let me finish my third point now, answer some questions. So, as I said, when we were in school, we were told by our parents and teachers what it was. And these days, you're getting even more of this by teachers, and it's based more on opinions now than actual facts. All right, there's more opinions than actual facts. And how can you, as a student, disagree with a teacher who believes? Let's say you got a teacher who's a they them. Let's say you got a professor on a college campus. They consider themselves a they them. They're not a man or a woman. They want to be referred to as they them. One day they're a man, the next day they're a woman. And if you don't refer to them by their chosen pronouns, you might fail the class or get kicked out of the classroom. All right. But you don't agree with that. Let's say you are a Christian and you don't agree with that at all. Just is based on your principles that you were taught since you were 5 years old by your parents at home. Now you go to a college campus and you don't agree with what the teacher is saying. Can you pass that class? I'm really interested in what happens in those situations because I'm sure it happens. What happens? I don't know, but somebody help me out. So anyway, here's my call to action. I'm going to address some questions. For the students, the teachers, and the parents listening, how much are the teachers in your life challenging the students to come up with their own opinions and conclusions? That's the question. And the parents as well. And you don't even have to be a student. Are you challenging people around you to draw their own opinions and conclusions? Armin said, no way you can get kicked out of class for that. Well, I'm asking what does happen. That's what I'm trying to figure out. What does happen if that happens? So let's say I'm a student and my teacher says they're a they, them, and I got to refer to them as they, them. And I say, well, look, I'm a Christian and I believe there are men and women and you appear to be a woman. So I'm going to refer to you as a woman. And now the teacher's mad at me. What happens? They get to make my grade, right? So what they decide to give me an F because I won't refer to them as they, them. What does happen? That is a hypothetical question, but I'm sure this is happening on college campuses right now. What does happen? What if a teacher is a supporter of Black Lives Matter and you don't support Black Lives Matter? Because Black Lives Matter had a protest and they burned down your family business in your neighborhood. And you don't support Black Lives Matter and you don't like the fact that teachers walking around with a Black Lives Matter shirt on and they make you write a report on Black Lives Matter and you write the report and trash Black Lives Matter and the teacher's mad because they're a donator to Black Lives Matter and now there's a conflict between you and the teacher based on an opinion. What happens there? I think these things are really taking place. So my question is, what does happen? This is what I mean when I say schools are more indoctrinating than they are teaching. They're not educating. They're not teaching you how to think. They're teaching you what to think, or they're telling you what to think. And if you disagree, now we got a conflict. How does that conflict get resolved? I'm interested. So any of you know a college professor, especially one who is more on the progressive side? Any of you know someone who is on that side, who is willing to have an open debate? I want to have a conversation with one of those people. I'm trying to get one of those people on my show. Listen, I tried to get my own sister to come on my show. She wouldn't come on my show. That's a true story. This is a true story. I tried to get her to come on my show. I wrote out a list of everything I was going to ask her about, and she wouldn't do it. because you come up with your own conclusion as to why she wouldn't do it. I'm gonna see her soon, and maybe I'll ask her, but we'll see. She probably won't bring it up. But all your professors, does any of your professors want to come on my show? I'm looking for a progressive college professor to come on the Work on Your Game podcast to have a conversation with me, and we will talk about all of these topics. And I don't even do interviews on my show. I probably had like 5 people on my show ever, and I got 2,300 episodes. But if any of you know somebody who's willing to come on and have a real conversation, then we'll do it. Yeah, she's a college professor. Life B-side, she is a college professor. I tried to get her to come on my show. I gave her a list of everything I was going to ask her. She agreed at first. I listed out everything I was going to say, and then the day of the interview, she canceled. That is a true story that happened. That's a true story that happened. She wouldn't come on the show. You could draw your own conclusions as to why she wouldn't come on the show. But hey, maybe she'll change her mind. So maybe one day she'll change her mind. So I'll leave the door open for the possibility that she might. So are you challenging all of you, especially you who are parents, are you challenging the people around you to think for themselves? Challenge them to come up with their own conclusions. Teach them how to think, not what to think. They don't have to have the same opinions as you. So this is a major litmus test for how things are changing, or if they're not changing. Because a lot of people talk about stuff that's changing. Some change is good. Some change ain't moving us forward. So that's the real thing. So who has a question about anything that I've said here? I talked a lot. Anybody got a question about anything I've said here? Go ahead and post it in the comments section. I'll address a couple questions. Then we will wrap this up. I don't even know how long we've been going. So, yeah, we had an alleged consultant who was coming in here trying to spew some nonsense. Then they said that they don't believe in the Bible, which is fine if you don't believe in the Bible. I just want to know, what is your baseline? What's your baseline of understanding for how the world works? And a lot of people's baseline understanding is just whatever I want to think about that moment. Again, that's what kids do. And if you have a kid, my kid's not old enough yet to talk and say things, but if you have a 7-year-old and you ask your 7-year-old, hey, what do you want for dinner? They might say, I want ice cream. All right, that's how they feel. All right, are you going to give them ice cream? No, you're going to say, all right, you can have ice cream after you eat dinner. You guys some ice cream, but you're going to eat this dinner, which is chicken and rice and green beans. After you eat that, then you can have some ice cream. But you're not just going to give them ice cream because that's how they feel in the moment. What's happening with a lot of adults these days is that they're basing their beliefs, quote unquote, their alleged beliefs on how they feel in the moment. We can't run a society with everyone basing things on their feelings. We need some baseline, some standards. Standards are the antidote to chaos. When you remove standards, you get chaos. And right now we're getting a lot of chaos in society because people don't want standards. Armin says, to be honest, as a Catholic, I give no damn if you're doing all of that, but if they're a Catholic, I advise them to probably convert or something. Well, if they're already a Catholic, what are they converting to? What do you mean convert? So the topic here today, for those who came in the middle, excuse me, I'm talking about how school sets us up for failure. My 4 points very quickly. General way school worked is that you're presented information, you had to retain it, then you had to regurgitate it. And if you did well at that, you got A's. You did bad at that, you got F's. Number 2, how real life works is an open book test. School is a closed book test. Real life is an open book test. So school is basically setting you up to do the opposite of what you need to do in real life. Number 3, our teachers and parents dictated to us. They told us what it was and how to think. They told us what to think instead of how to think. And if they had taught us differently, then we might have a different generation out today. Number 4, for everyone out there, if you have people who are looking up to you and looking to you for information, teach them how to think. Educate them. Educating means to extract what is already in somebody and cause them to think for themselves, not to put information in people. Education does not mean putting information in somebody. It means getting them to get their own information. So let's see what we got here. Miss Sis, what's going on? Senior in high school, my English professor expressed that she was agnostic. She had us students split up into 3 groups and have a debate. All right, I'm good with that. I'll see what the rest of your story was in a second. Arma says, I don't know what the proper word is, but to stop being Catholic in general, I guess. Be atheist or something else that supports what they are doing. Well, here's the thing, Arvin, they are not doing anything. That's the whole problem. When people don't have a baseline, they're not doing anything. Everything's just going all over the place. That's the problem. That's the reason why I said when I'm talking to someone who has a religion, doesn't mean everybody has to have a religion. When I'm talking to someone who has a religion, I know I will get along with them because they have a baseline understanding of truth. But people who don't have one doesn't mean that they won't have a baseline understanding, but there's a possibility that they won't because they could just move the goalposts whenever they feel like it. Like our consulting friend who was in here earlier. So Ms. Sis says one group believe children are born evil, one group believe kids are born inherently good, and those that were undecided. Well, at least she offered y'all to have a debate, Mrs. I'm open to that. So if the teacher says I'm agnostic, which means what? They don't have any particular religion, right? It's a wild experience. Interesting to see how many kids don't know why they believe what they believe. I think it was nice to hear of her to challenge our beliefs, even if it was uncomfortable. Yes, I 100% agree. Now that's a good teacher. That's a teacher who understands their actual job is not to tell you here's what you're supposed to be thinking. The teacher's job is to present things because they know more than you. Ostensibly, they're supposed to know more than the students, but to challenge you to think for yourself and come up with your own ideas and ask you questions that you otherwise never would have asked yourself. That's what a good teacher's supposed to do, is to get you to think about things you would not have thought about on your own volition. That's what a good teacher is supposed to do. And hopefully, again, I'm not in school anymore. Hopefully, in our schools and colleges, we still have a good number of teachers and professors who are doing this. Of course, social media just shows you the sensational stuff. So the people who are doing this don't get attention. But the people who are actually doing the sensational stuff, those are the ones you see on Twitter and Instagram and libs of TikTok and all. They get the news articles written about them because they're doing crazy stuff. But what you just described, that kind of teacher doesn't get a lot of attention because it's not sensational. It doesn't make people angry. Things that make people angry go viral. If you're not making people angry, you won't go viral. So I 100% agree with doing something like that. Like, hey, here's how I feel about this. Here's my opinion on this. And also things like if I was a college professor or a teacher anywhere, I would say to the kids, all right, here's something that all you know about or have an opinion about. I want all of you who think this way to argue the opposite side. And all you think this way, you got to argue the opposite side. You got to be able to argue the other side of anything you believe. Any good teacher should be teaching people to do that. You should be able to argue the opposite of every opinion that you have. If you can't do that, then you lack critical thinking skills. That's what I would say to anybody. All right, we've been doing this for an hour and a half, so I'm about to wrap up. My voice is still not 100% back, but I'm close. So I know a lot of people are dropping out because of those radical ideologies. Yeah, that's crazy, and that shouldn't be happening. The thing is, the schools are afraid of getting attacked by whoever for not going along with the program, so they're allowing this stuff. Like it was this group called the Proud Boys. What's the guy who started the Proud Boys and this dude named Alex Stein. They were going to speak at Penn State, where I went to school. And when they got up there, a bunch of students protested. Y'all know this happens. A bunch of students protested that these guys are speaking, saying that they're hateful and harmful, et cetera, et cetera. And the students protested so much that the school shut it down and didn't let the guys speak because they were afraid of violence. That's what's happening now, and that's crazy. The schools are allowing these students who don't want to hear something to shut it down. There's a book called The Coddling of the American Mind that I talked about on my podcast. I just read it probably about 2 months ago. That is another one that any of you hasn't read that book, you should read that book, especially if you have children or you're raising children. This says, I'm leaning towards homeschooling when I have children. Oh, me too. Me too. Because some of the things I've heard and read in recent years in the public school system, yeah, it's crazy. And another reason I'm thinking about homeschooling is I think I'm the most qualified teacher for my child or children. I don't think there's a teacher out there that can teach my child better than me. So, and also you just got to make sure, the thing is everybody can't homeschool because everybody doesn't have the resources. You got to have the time to do it. And to have the time, you got to be at home, right? To homeschool, you got to be at home, right? So that's another thing people got to keep in mind. And everybody doesn't have that luxury. So this is why we all got to plan ahead, think about what we're going to be doing. So with all that said, folks, we'll be going 90 minutes here. Let me cut this off. Everybody, my next event called Work on Your Game Live is taking place February 3rd and 4th in Miami. February 3rd and 4th, Miami. Early bird tickets are available right now at that link, Work on Your Game Live. Work on Your Game Live. That event, February 3rd and 4th, tickets are available right now. Early bird tickets. The pricing ends on October 31st at midnight, but there'll be tickets available after that. Just the prices will go up. Go to workonyourgame.live. Workonyourgame.live. Get your ticket to my event. If you were following my stuff, you read it in my books, you watched this live, you like what you heard here, you listen to my podcast, you see me on YouTube, come to my event, 2 full days. I'm going to be teaching it. You're going to meet a lot of like-minded individuals. It's going to be in a beautiful location in Miami. We're going to feed you breakfast. We're going to feed you lunch. We're going to give you coffee, donuts, drinks, all that stuff, all the snacks that you like. All that's going to be covered. It's going to be in a beautiful location. You're going to be taking pictures and Instagram and all of that where we're going to be having this event. You're going to take pictures with me. All that stuff is going to happen at Work on Your Game Live, February 3rd and 4th, Miami, Florida. If you want a way to go to the next level in my world, this is it. Come to Work on Your Game Live. Those tickets are available. I'll put the link in my story, but it's right there, workonyourgame.live. Make sure you are at my event taking place again February 3rd and 4th. That's a little more than 90 days away, so y'all got plenty of time to get ready, get your travel plans together, et cetera, et cetera. And why not have a great excuse to come to Miami in the middle of the winter time? Tax write-off is a business expense. There's a professional development, and I'm gonna give you all the game for 2 days. I didn't even get to that part. All the game you need for 2 days: mindset, strategy, accountability, execution. Workonyourgame.live. Have not gotten your ticket yet? Go get your ticket at workonyourgame.live. Everybody, I appreciate your time, attention, and engagement here today. I'll probably be doing another live tomorrow. I have talked enough for this afternoon. Y'all have a good day. Work on your game. We are out of here.